I can.
Okay, I'll let you know when you can get started.
Thank you.
Are you guys all ready for me to get started?
Just one sec. Having a problem with the screen there. Screen just went down. We gotta put it back up.
Okay, Premier, you can go ahead.
Okay, are we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for making time for this update. The COVID-19 situation is rapidly evolving, changing minute by minute, and as a government, we're doing everything we can to meet those challenges. As you've heard from Dr. Morrison today, we're taking even more measures, taking more measures every day, every hour, to make sure we're doing everything possible to contain the spread of COVID-19. We know as these unprecedented times unfold that islanders have a heightened sense of concern. We're hearing those concerns. We understand the level of stress and anxiety that are behind those concerns, and we're working to do everything we can to help alleviate as much of that concern as possible. Yesterday, we announced an emergency contingency fund to help island businesses. Understanding the need to act immediately for those businesses, those individuals, those employees, the self-employed, for all of those islanders impacted by the economic and social slowdowns that are connected to COVID-19, and to get money into the hands of islanders as soon as possible. The phone lines that we activated have been busy, and I understand we've taken over 400 calls, and we expect several hundred more in the days ahead. Today, we will be announcing the first of these emergency contingency rollout funds. I have my fellow cabinet ministers here who will speak to what supports their special committees are working on for the senior population, for our most vulnerable, as well as for the self-employed and for small business. This is just the beginning. This is the initial rollout of the money that we are earmarked yesterday. In the days ahead, you will hear more about our economic and social rollouts, as we want to do all islanders to know that we are here for you and we will work closely with you to get through these most difficult times. I also wanted to take a moment to share that I've been having conversations with business leaders, with mayors of municipalities, with business owners, and important partners such as Maritime Electric. In these unprecedented times, in these moments of great stress, we want to make sure that we're doing what's right to help reduce the pressure on islanders. I spoke with John Goody, the president and CEO of Maritime Electric, this morning, and underlined how important it is in these heightened times for islanders to not need to be worried about being in the dark or having the lights disconnected. Following that conversation, senior management from Maritime Electric announced that they would not disconnect power in the next few weeks for any islander who may be struggling to make ends meet in these unprecedented times. We've also heard from Dr. Morrison and her expert advice on self isolation, social distancing, and with the closures recently announced, we very much recognize there are numerous impacts and socio-economic ones, and we are doing everything we can from our leadership tables to make sure we're dealing with these and to help find solutions. I'd also like to take one moment just to talk to directly to the parents of children out there like me who are dealing with self isolation and are being disconnected from their personal social networks. I would encourage you, like I've been doing, to talk to your children, explain to them the seriousness of what we're living through right now as a province, as a country, as a world, and to remember how important it is for our young islanders to have that social connection and interaction, and to take this important time to treasure your loved ones and enjoy the opportunities you're getting to share in this special time with them. I said this yesterday, and I will continue to say it going forward, that we're calling on you, friends, neighbors, and community partners. We need to work together if we're going to be successful. COVID-19 is serious. COVID-19 is here in Prince Edward Island. We can all help flatten the curve if we follow the sage advice that the Chief Public Health Officer is providing. And I encourage you, I implore you to do your part, to do all we can. With that, I will turn it over to my cabinet colleagues to announce the rollout of our plans here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. As Minister of Social Development and Housing and Chair of a Special Committee on Labor and Social Supports, I'm pleased to announce initial investments to support the island's most vulnerable. Islanders are concerned how they will feed their children, how they will pay their bills, if they will have a place to live. Today, our Cabinet has approved an initial investment of $500,000 to assist at this difficult and unprecedented time. The province of Prince Edward Island is pleased to provide $250,000 to support United Way of Prince Edward Island and to support the Atlantic Compassion Fund that is delivered by the United Way. As well, we are giving $100,000 to the Prince Edward Island Food Bank Association and $100,000 to the Salvation Army of Prince Edward Island for home heating. A $50,000 initial contingency fund for community programs and NGOs has also been established. One of the greatest strengths of our province is our ability to come together and find solutions to support our friends and our neighbors. Our network of community sector partners is best able to deliver these services to islanders most in need, and we will continue to work with them going forward. In addition, the Prince Edward Island Housing Corporation will be suspending all evictions for at least the next 6 weeks. As the largest landlord in the province, we must show leadership on this. It's important that we take appropriate action to protect our clients during this very challenging time. Our government continues to engage with various housing sectors across the province. As the Premier has said many times, we will get through this challenging time the island way. This means by taking the necessary precautions, by working together, and by looking out for one another. No one wants to see tenants lose their homes because they cannot afford to pay their rent as a result of either losing their job or a lack of income due to COVID-19 situation. We also do not want to see landlords adversely affected because of this situation either. We have been in contact with the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission and have asked them to take this matter under consideration. The Prime Minister has committed that no one should have to worry about paying rent because of COVID-19, and the federal government will be offering temporary financial help for workers who are not eligible for regular EI benefits. The province of Prince Edward Island will continue to work with the federal government and our provincial staff to ensure these needs are identified and supports are in place to assist islanders. We will continue to be there for islanders, and I will now turn it over to Minister McKay.
Thank you, Minister Hudson, and good evening, everyone. I would like to start by providing more details on the 1-866 number we announced yesterday. This phone line is for island businesses to share how COVID-19 has impacted their business. When an employer calls the phone line, staff will collect contact information for their business and note the employer's concerns on how COVID-19 has impacted their business. Collecting this information will help us to develop program supports from the $25 million contingency fund we have announced yesterday. As of 5 today, we have received over 400 phone calls from island businesses. We continue to ask islanders for their patience as we know many of you are trying to get through to these lines. We currently have 6 lines open with 20 staff working to collect information, and tomorrow we will be adding more supports. I want to remind islanders that this phone line is only for island businesses to call to share the impact of COVID-19 and their business. For general questions about COVID-19, islanders should continue to call 1-800-958-6400. Once again, 1-800-958-6400. Since the phone line launched this morning, we have heard many concerns from islanders who are self-employed. Our department is working very quickly to address these concerns. And that's why today we are announcing a new $500 per week lump sum for self-employed islanders through Innovation PEI who have seen a significant loss in their income this week. This payment will go through a check in the mail or electronic transfer over the next 2 weeks. While we continue to have discussions with the federal government on their relief plan, starting tomorrow, islanders can learn more about this income relief through Innovation's PEI website, www.innovationpei.com. Once again, www.innovationpei.com. Another support we are announcing today is for small businesses. We'll be rolling out a working capital loan of up to $100,000. With a fixed interest rate of 4%, this loan can be used to assist with fixed operating costs such as payroll, rent, utilities, etc., with principal and interest payments deferred for a minimum of 12 months and no application fee. Starting tomorrow, islanders can learn more about this loan by visiting Finance PEI's webpage on the provincial government's website. Tomorrow, we will share more information for how we are supporting workers who have been impacted by COVID-19. For employees who have or may be laid off, for those who have seen their hours decrease, and for those who may not be eligible for EI. We want to assure you we are working with our federal partners to support you, and that I will have an update for you tomorrow. I would now like to pass this on to Minister Myers.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. So I'm going to expand a little on yesterday's announcement. We are taking social distancing very seriously in the provincial government offices. So today, departments and agencies have moved to essential services, and we are depopulating the buildings. Service delivery locations that will be closed at the end of the day, I'll give you a list at the end, but it includes Access PEI service centers, provincial administration building here in Charlottetown, IWMC, though they'll continue to collect waste, their offices and contact centers will be closed to the public. But I want to note on that the registry offices in Queens, Kings, and Prince County will remain open, subject to the CPHO protocols, including mandatory social distancing. And we're going to continue to reevaluate that decision on a weekly basis. With Access PEI closed, there will be a 60-day grace period for vehicle registrations and driver's license, and that'll be based on the date of expiry. Our policing partners will be informed of that grace period. We're also going to suspend enforcement activities related to the collection of provincial fines until we can facilitate an online payment solution, so we'll have an update on that as the weeks go by. For sites that remain open, to provide essential services to islanders, we're working to keep everyone that works in those buildings safe. So with that, we're going to be limiting points of entry to the public. We're posting signs and asking those who don't feel well not to visit. We're limiting courier access and delivery to these buildings. We're going to support social distancing for our staff. We've already moved to and will continue to keep enhanced cleaning schedules. And we're going to remove items that are not easily cleaned and disinfected, like brochures and magazines. So with that, I'm going to give you a rundown of what we currently have today as reported to the Operations Committee by departments. And this is a list of closures to public access. That doesn't mean that staff won't necessarily be in them, but they won't be open to the public. PEI libraries, all PEI schools, PSB offices, education offices in Charlottetown and Summerside, PEI earlier year centers, Access PEI service centers, Provincial Administration Building, IWMC offices, Auburn Arsenault Building, Workers' Compensation Board, Innovation PEI and Finance PEI, Labor and Industrial Relations, Efficiency PEI, provincial offices at Atlantic Technology Center, Skills PEI offices, Agriculture and Land offices, including inspection services at Gordon Drive, though dairy samples will continue to be delivered. Visitor information centers, museum and heritage foundation sites. So that's the complete list as of today. I would expect as the days go by that will be updated, and we will continue to provide updates to the public. So with that, we'll open the floor.
I'm wondering why, sorry to identify, Stephanie Kelly, CBC. Wondering why cannabis stores and liquor stores are still operating basically as normal, with the exception of how currency is accepted.
Okay, well, that's a decision that's made by the departments. Like so many of the things that I've announced as closures, they were brought forward by each departmental level. At this point, those buildings remain open. They're, of course, reviewable hourly, and if we have any anticipated change in those, we will bring them back to you.
Right, I assume it's not necessarily defined as an essential service. There might be some risk involved, so I'm just wondering if that was in consideration to cut back on just the foot traffic, I guess, that would be created, and trying to avoid getting too close to other people.
And like I say, that's something that we evaluate daily, so if there's anticipated changes, we'll bring them back here.
Stu Neepy from The Guardian.
Speak up just a little bit, they can't hear the questions.
Stu Neepy from The Guardian. Yeah, a question for Minister MacKay. I guess yesterday the 1866 line had been identified for workers, entrepreneurs, and businesses. So now it seems it's just for businesses. What's the direction for workers who've been laid off or affected? Are they supposed to contact EI? You know, what's the...
No, so they still call that number. So what has taken place now, you can imagine the amount of calls that have come in. So I should give a shout out to the staff at Innovation for what they've been through today for day one. They've certainly done a tremendous job, and I want to thank them for the time and effort they've put in there so far today. But no, the employees still call that number. So what we're working with now, we're waiting to get a little info from the federal government on what supports they're going to be releasing, and we just didn't want to come out right away and interfere in a sense and doubling up on the support side of it. Because we still, the unknown, right? So they're still to call that 1866 number, give us the concerns, and one way or the other tomorrow we will be making an announcement. We're just looking for a little guidance from the federal government at this point.
If workers are eligible for, say, the extended sickness benefits, are they just simply being referred to EI?
Not at this point. Like the main thing right now is we want to make sure that Islanders are not going without money too long. So that's our number one priority right now. So some of that is going to take some time. So I believe we're probably going to have to navigate some of that through us as well to eliminate that time temporarily.
Laurent Hugo, La Voix Acadienne. There are a lot of shops which are already closed in town. Some are remaining open yet. Are you asking the shops to close not the groceries shops, but all the other ones?
No, that would be up to Dr. Heather Morrison at this point of what we do. I think Islanders are doing a good job right now of what should be open and what shouldn't be. I believe a lot of businesses are to the point now where they're struggling. So I think daily, as government, we need to show that we're there to support them. And as the days go by here and we can begin to roll more out, I think you'll probably see more be able to do that.
Stu Neepy from The Guardian. Again, I guess a question I suppose I'd direct to Minister Hudson. On the subject of evictions, so you indicated PEI Housing Corporation is not going to be evicting tenants. You'd strongly urging IRAC to consider that. I mean, does that mean that IRAC has been recommended by the ministry to discontinue evictions? Does this just apply to people where there's hearings scheduled? Does this apply to everyone? You know, what's the sort of directive for evictions right now?
Thank you, Stu. And to go back to the original point, The PEI Housing Corporation, it's the largest landlord in the province of PEI, and we felt that it is appropriate as a Crown Corporation to any eviction notices that have been served, that they will be stayed for a 6-week period, and certainly subsequent to that, we will review, see what the situation is at that point in time. With regard to the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, discussions have taken place, will continue to take place with IRAC on this very matter. It'd be premature, to be honest, to say just what direction that IRAC may or may not take.
Okay, so it's basically just sort of up to their discretion to decide what the next step is.
I believe IRAC's coming out with a communication on what they will and will not be doing, but they will do that on their own.
Is there any power, I guess, with the education minister under, we're in a state of emergency to basically stay all evictions right now? Like, is that a tool that the province actually has?
IRAC is, as you say, Stu, it is under the Ministry of Education. With that, though, it does, as Crown Corporations, it does operate at arm's length. And I think it really it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that, other than that government, obviously, right across every department, is working together as we deal with this. At the end of the day, for every program like the announcements that I've made here today, Islanders have to be at the front and the center of the decisions that we make, and we will continue to do that.
Can I offer clarification? Just on something I said. Thank you. Thank you. So I just wanted to offer a clarification here on the Access PEI site. So it's the service counter that I'm talking about, and Minister Hudson and other ministers would have staff in some of those buildings that would still be essential services, so they'll still be there, and there'll be signage directing you how to find those people in the buildings. But the actual service counter that you would go to get your license or registration won't be open.
Kramer, I believe you had a comment that you wanted to make?
I can't quite hear you, Amanda, but I'd just like to further answer Stu's question, if you can hear me there.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, look, Minister Hudson talked about what we have under our direct authority. And to clarify, we're under a state of public health emergency. We're not under a state of provincial emergency, so it is different. But I will begin tomorrow talking with some of our largest landlords around the province, and would be trying to appeal to the better nature of all islanders in this difficult time. This is not the time to be evicting people because they can't pay their bills because of what's happened here in the last few weeks. So more on that in the next day ahead, but certainly we'll be talking to and send a message here to all landlords in this province to like all islanders are doing in this difficult time, to try to make the best possible decisions that can be made, keeping in mind we're in these very, very unprecedented times.
Anybody else for questions?
Yeah, John Morris, Eastern Graphic. The Compassion Fund is for a month long of assistance. What about for people that are on the streets right now that don't have a place to live, that are at risk of becoming ill?
Thank you for that question. And, you look back over the last number of months, the initiatives that we have put in place, whether it's support for Blooming House, Bedford McDonald House, those shelters will remain open. We continue to be in contact with them to determine just what their needs, what their evolving needs may be. 211 Euston Street, which is the Community Outreach Center, it continues to be open. So really the services for our homeless population have not changed, other than the fact that certainly staff, whether it's at Blooming House, whether it's at Bedford McDonald House, at 211 Euston Street, are very familiar with the protocols that we need in place right now and that are in place with regard to social distancing. At both Blooming House and Bedford McDonald House, in the event that there is a resident at either of these facilities that does require isolation and is, is in that situation of homelessness, there is bedrooms in each of them that are set aside with a shower that is set aside for that individual as well. But as far as for our homeless population, the services continue to be there and will continue to be there.
Stephanie Kelly, CBC. Just wondering to what extent you've had conversations with the different organizations like the food banks and United Way that are going to get this $500,000 among them. Do you have any idea how that money is going to be spent to make it most effective for people to access when they're essentially stuck in their homes?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point to bring forward, and I think that we look at our community partners that we've had right along and continue to have with regard to the United Way, the fund that they are delivering. It's across the 4 Atlantic provinces. So again, you have United Way that is based on their history, based on their experience, that are able to provide programming, provide services to islanders. I think too, we look back at Hurricane Dorian and the relationship that the provincial government had with our partners, the Salvation Army, with the food banks, and we will continue to do that. It's certainly it's a crisis situation that we are in here, and we will continue to work with the partners.
Successful after Dorian, this model?
I believe so. We are, as the Premier has said, we are in unprecedented times. We're navigating waters that we have never anticipated that we would have to navigate, unfortunately. So my thought is that whether it's 6 weeks down the road or 6 months down the road, I would much prefer to look back and wonder, did we act appropriately? Did we act sufficiently, rather than 6 months down the road look back and know that we hadn't?
I need to repeat a question, but I didn't. I was hoping to direct this to the Premier. The same question about cannabis stores and liquor stores. I'm just wondering, maybe you have an additional response to Minister Myers, maybe not.
No, Minister Myers, exactly right. Internally, I think every department, particularly some of the retail components, they're now looking at what options could look like in terms of operating with a skeleton staff or with, not having some interaction. So I think Minister Myers, right, you'll see some announcements in the days ahead, but we're really just trying to deal with the high priority issues as they come. And these are difficult days, and stay tuned.
Radio Canada. Question for the Premier. Premier, are you waiting the shops to shut their door by themselves, or you think that maybe you can take the decision ahead and decide to close all of the shops, except, of course, the grocery stores and shops like this?
Hey, shops. I think what was closing restaurants and bars, or closing them to be open, not just to people doing drive-through type services. Our stores and pharmacies, our grocery stores will need to continue to be open. They're essential. And we're just dealing with this day to day. Dr. Morrison has been leading our health response, and she's doing a wonderful job along that way. And every day we just try to put more and more in place to limit the spread, do what we can to limit the spread of COVID. At the same time, we're trying to remain as functional as we can economically here in the province, and that's getting more difficult every day, though.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I guess this one would be directed to Minister Hudson. Stu Neatby from The Guardian. I guess with the directive of the last 2 days from the Prime Minister for expat Canadians to return home, do you feel that there might be any further pressure put on the housing supply or the rental stock in Prince Edward Island because of that? And are there plans or beginnings of plans in place for people who might need housing if they're sort of returning home from abroad?
Well, I guess with that I would, and I don't have the exact figures on it, Stu, but I would anticipate that the vast majority of islanders who are outside of the country at this point in time are traveling on business, they are traveling for vacation, they're traveling in some cases for essential means. But with that, the vast majority would have the accommodations that they previously had in place before they traveled outside of the country. With that, certainly we have taken steps on the housing file, as you're well aware. But I think that it's like so many things right now that are evolving on a day-to-day and hourly basis. And as a government, as a department, we will be there to respond accordingly.
Last question.
I guess this one would be directed to Minister McKay. On the emergency contingency fund, we obviously have a population, of thousands of international students who are living in Canada. We have a number of temporary foreign workers. Would these individuals who might have lost income or revenue be eligible for the emergency contingency fund?
It's a good question, Stu. So that has been discussed. We have no numbers right now of how many that's would be affected by that. So every day is changing. I believe we're going to have discussions on that over the next 48 hours. But as of right now, we don't know how many's that's going to affect. So we'll find out a little more in the coming days, but I don't have an answer for you right now on that.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you, Premier. Thanks, ministers, and if media have any other follow-ups, we can deal with them by email. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.